In this unit, we will look at Hohokam architecture and changes from the pre-classic to classic periods, and look at how those changes can be used to understand changes in social organization as well. One of the significant changes from the pre-classic period to the classic period was a change in the basic form of household architecture, from pit houses in courtyard groups to above-ground adobe structures in compounds. These compounds mark space used by groups of households as more restrictive and exclusive. Pit houses continued to be used during the classic period, but primarily in more marginal parts of larger communities or in smaller, more isolated settlements. The forms of communal ritual architecture used to bring larger communities together for political and economic activities also changed, and also indicate increasing restrictions on access. Ball courts were built and used during the pre-classic period and likely brought large numbers of people together. The use of ball courts coincides with the widespread exchange systems, and their use ended when these exchange systems contracted. Ball courts will be discussed more in the unit on pottery production and exchange. Later classic period platform mounds built upon an earlier tradition of elevated surfaces used for ritual purposes. Pre-classic mounds were round, up to 1 meter high and 10 meters in diameter, and associated with cremation cemeteries. They are believed to have been elevated surfaces used for the performance of public mortuary rites. The later platform mounds were rectangular and much larger. The largest at Pueblo Grande, a City of Phoenix park near the airport, is 47 by 90 meters and 4 meters high. Platform mounds also supported structures on their tops. Some rooms may have been used for ritual use, while others were for storage or residential use. Compared to the relative openness and inclusiveness of the ball courts, access to ritual activities that occurred on top of platform mounds was more restricted and exclusive. The presence of residences on top of some platform mounds also indicates greater social differentiation, with some apparently special people literally elevated above the rest of the community. This is an artist's reconstruction of a typical pre-classic pit house. A superstructure of poles would be built within a shallow pit. Mats of woven brush would then be attached to this frame and covered with mud plaster. A pit house would be entered via a lateral entryway. While this example lacks one, most pit houses probably had smoke holes, as small hearths are often found inside. These small hearths were probably used mostly for light and heat in winter, as most cooking activities were performed on hearths or in earth ovens in the courtyards outside the pit houses. Each pit house probably housed a single nuclear family. Pit houses were arranged into courtyard groups around a central open space, the courtyard, where food preparation and other activities occurred. These courtyard groups probably represent extended families with multiple related nuclear families, perhaps multi-generational, that shared resources and cooperated economically. Villages consisted of courtyard groups arranged around associated cemeteries, where related individuals were buried and the living gathered to reaffirm group relations. Larger villages, like this portion of La Ciudad, excavated where I-10, SR-51, and SR-202 come together, would have several clusters of courtyard groups and associated cemeteries dispersed around a central ball court and associated plaza area. In these villages, there are few differences in house size and form among the courtyard groups, and little differences in the types and amounts of grave goods found in the different cemeteries, which suggest an egalitarian social structure with little social inequality. Hohokam ball courts consist of an oval-shaped depression with two earthen berms like parentheses on either side. The berms define the playing field within the depression and the open ends are the goals. The map shows the distribution of all known ball courts, and you can see they are widespread, present in both the core and in the peripheries. The photos show the largest ball court known that was excavated at the site of Snaketown in the 1930s. Snaketown is one of the largest known Hohokam villages and is located on the north side of the Gila River, just west of where I-10 crosses the river south of Phoenix. The southern half of the ball court was excavated, and you can see a person standing for scale on the right-hand side of the playing field in the top photo. The bottom photo shows the erosion that has occurred in the excavated half in the decades since excavation. In modern excavation projects, excavated areas are usually backfilled after the completion of the excavation to protect and preserve the exposed archaeological features. The Snaketown ball court is one of the largest known, measuring 60 by 33 meters, and most others are about half its size. Excavated ball courts have prepared clay playing surfaces with evidence of maintenance and renovation, and stone markers set in the middle and at the goals. Hohokam ball courts were probably used to play a game similar to that found throughout Mesoamerica, in northern South America, and in the Caribbean. This game was a reenactment of a mythic game played in the underworld between the hero twins and the gods of death. In the myth, the hero twins have gone to the underworld to revenge the death of their father and uncle, who had lost the game to the gods of death. Through trickery and skill, they purposefully lose, getting the gods to increase the gambling stakes each time. When the gods are willing to bet their own lives, the hero twins stop shaving points and decidedly crush the gods. By sacrificing the gods, the hero twins resurrect their father, who is reborn as the maize god and emerges on the Earth's surface world with maize to feed the people. The game was associated with warfare and boundaries, and allowed mediated competition with rules that prevented the escalation of violence to lethal levels. Some ball games were used to prepare warfare captives for sacrifice in the role of the gods of death, but most were simply games that were, however, very serious in their symbolic meaning. Ball games were often scheduled to coincide with calendrical rituals determined by positions of the sun, moon, certain stars, or planets. As can be seen in the clay model on the right, ball games drew large crowds of spectators who often bet heavily on the outcomes. Known as ulama, the ball game is still played in rural parts of West Mexico, particularly in the states of Sinaloa and Jalisco. It is played with a solid ball made from the sap of the rubber tree. The balls can weigh between 8 and 12 pounds. The players bounce the ball off their hips and try to bounce it over the half line, past all the opposing players, and out the goal at the end. The solid rubber balls bounce high and fast, think of a giant super ball, and can really pack a wallop upon impact. Historic accounts from the Aztec indicate that players could be severely injured or even die if the ball were misplayed. Broken ribs, punctured lungs, ruptured spleens, even broken necks. Special padding was worn on the hips to protect from the impact of the ball. You can see these padding worn by these players. In the Videos module, there is a link to a video of the game being played in contemporary Sinaloa. Notice how high the ball bounces and how fast it moves between the two sides. Also listen for the sound of the ball impacting against the players' bodies. Balls have been found in the Hohokam area made from the rubbery sap of the huayule bush, which grows in southeastern Arizona and adjacent parts of Mexico. In contemporary games in West Mexico, the opposing teams represent different villages and provide a context for competition between the communities. They also provide context for peaceful, non-competitive interaction. Like modern games, the events held at ball courts provided a scheduled time and place for people from different communities to gather, bringing a lot of potential consumers together for those interested in trading their products. Also, the ball games created a shared sense of community identity, which allowed the exchange of materials across social boundaries without fear of being robbed or cheated. Games held in ball courts are believed to have been accompanied by large markets, as shown in this artist's depiction of the ball court at Snaketown, and marketing activities in the adjacent plaza. The ball courts also allowed large crowds of spectators to stand on the berms and observe the game. Ball games were open and inclusive, allowing a large part of the community to participate in the activities, even if only as spectators. The Classic period saw a shift to above-ground adobe compound architecture, although some pit houses were still used in marginal communities. These compounds have adobe-walled structures, usually one room, but also some with suites of multiple rooms. These adobe-walled rooms were grouped around a courtyard that was then enclosed by an adobe wall. These compounds may have had the same organizational principles of the earlier courtyard groups, with extended families composed of multiple related nuclear families. Do the enclosing courtyard walls indicate greater separation and segmentation of social groups? They are more closed off, and there is less visible information available to those outside the compound about the resident social group's activities and available resources. These greater restrictions on access and openness are similar to the changes in communal ritual architecture, from open and inclusive ball courts to restricted and exclusive platform mounds. Also, while the pre-classic courtyard groups appear to have shared cemetery areas, creating and maintaining social connections between the residents of different courtyard groups, each classic period compound often has its own cemetery. Ball courts and the extensive exchange systems they supported fell out of use after AD 1085, and for the next century or so, there were no forms of communal ritual architecture to integrate the different segments of Hohokam communities. After about AD 1200, platform mounds emerged as a new form of communal ritual architecture. The map shows the distribution of all known platform mounds, and you'll note that they are not as widely distributed as the earlier ball courts were. While ball courts were built and used throughout the core and periphery of the Hohokam regional system, platform mounds are restricted to the core. The top photo shows the Pueblo Grande platform mound under excavation in the 1930s, and the lower image shows an artist's reconstruction of the Klein Terrace platform mound in the Tonto Basin. Note how the platform mound has structures on top and is enclosed by a compound wall. Pueblo Grande is the largest platform mound and is preserved in a City of Phoenix park near the airport. Other platform mounds that have been preserved and may be visited also include Mesa Grande, a city park northwest of downtown Mesa, and Casa Grande, a national monument in Coolidge. This image is a three-dimensional digital model created by architect Dennis Holloway of Santa Fe. Note the rectangular shape and vertical sides of the mound, which has rooms on top and a compound wall and other rooms surrounding it. Like ball courts were surrounded by courtyard groups, platform mounds were at the center of dispersed communities of adobe compounds. 3 platform mounds with massive multi-story structures on top, sometimes called great houses, are known of, but only the Casa Grande, which is now a national monument, still survives. There, a 3-story structure with thick adobe walls was built on top of a platform mound. Another one of these great houses was formerly located within the village of Los Muertos, which is near the modern Chandler Fashion Center. It was excavated in the 1880s in some of the first professional excavations of Hohokam sites. It has since been destroyed by modern development. Another one of these great houses was formerly located north of Pueblo Grande, but the remains of this structure have been destroyed by modern development. In Casa Grande, remaining small windows on upper stories align with the horizon and with important sunrises and sunsets in the solar calendar. Autumn myths tell of Morning Green, a rain shaman who lived on top of the mound. He and other rain shamans, immigrants from the north, were at first welcomed by the people, who built them the platform mounds. These rain shamans observed the sun, moon, and stars, and had the ability to control the weather with their magical powers. They eventually abused these powers and treated the people with contempt and disdain. The people appealed to their culture hero, Elder Brother, who raised an army in the east that then swept through the region, destroying the mounds and the rain shamans. The first battle was at Casa Grande, where Morning Green was defeated through both force of arms and a duel of magical powers with Elder Brother. The final battle was at Pueblo Grande, where Yellow Vulture was the last rain shaman to fall. This and other Autumn myths were recounted to archaeologist Julian Hayden in the 1930s by Autumn workers in the evenings around the campfire after excavating at Snaketown during the day. They have been published in the book The Short Swift Time of the Gods on Earth, the Hohokam Chronicles, and tell autumn stories of the rise and fall of the Hohokam. Like other platform mounds, Casa Grande was enclosed within a compound that restricted access. These compound walls and the rooms on top of the platform mounds suggest that ritual activities were becoming more secretive, with participation restricted perhaps only to people of high status. This is unlike the more open and inclusive communal rituals associated with the earlier ball courts. Hohokam architecture provides insights into the nature of social organization among the Hohokam. The construction and maintenance of irrigation systems and the distribution of water among the users along a canal system would have required some form of centralized leadership. Multiple communities along canals would have had to cooperate in order to build these features and allocate the water among the different communities. The pre-classic period ball courts and mounds, as well as the later classic period platform mounds, also would have required the communal organization of labor in order to build them. Pre-classic settlements suggest low levels of centralized political control. The courtyard groups of pit houses, organized around formal crematoria and cemeteries, suggest that social structure was focused on unilineal descent groups, groups like clans, multiple independent households brought together through a shared sense of kinship. There are no overt differences between courtyard groups. They all have the same size and shape of houses, and there is no difference between the offerings found in different cemeteries. No cemeteries have greater wealth or access to different materials than other cemeteries, and these suggest relatively egalitarian social organization during the pre-classic period. Classic period settlements, however, suggest a greater degree of social inequality and perhaps the presence of an emerging political and ritual elite. The compound architecture leads to greater restrictions on access and perhaps greater segmentation of the society. Platform mounds started perhaps as communal ritual structures, but became the residential precincts of the elite. Some may have also served as centers of storage, perhaps tribute from the commoners to the elite and stored at the platform mounds for redistribution during public ceremonies. There is also greater differentiation in mortuary treatment between elite and commoners. The platform mound at Los Muertos and one of the compound rooms at Casa Grande had raised above-ground adobe sarcophaguses that held burials of apparently important individuals who had rich offerings and rare objects associated with political and ritual status, including painted staffs and shell trumpets. So there may have been an emerging ruling elite who used their control of ritual to co-opt these sacred spaces of platform mounds and transform them into their exclusive residences.